Did you know Fort Walton Beach has a food truck scene that rivals big cities? Or that there are local swimming and fishing holes that only us locals know about? That's just two or three of the 15 reasons why I think you will love life here in Fort Walton Beach. Are you ready to know the other 13? What is going on? My name is Andrew. Of course, you can call me Mongo. Today, I thought it would be fitting to bring a little sand or a little beach bucket that has all of our great stuff inside that we're going to be talking about in today's video. The 15 reasons why you will love life in Fort Walton Beach. So if you're even considering moving to the Emerald Coast and Fort Walton Beach is on your list, this is the perfect video for you. And you're going to want to stay till the end because I have no idea what order these are going to go into. So let's go ahead and jump into it. We're going to start with whatever this is. All right. Secret swimming holes. One of the coolest things about living in a beach town area with all the outdoors activities and stuff that we have here is finding those little nooks and crannies, those little secrets that nobody else really knows about, that you kind of need to be a local, that you eventually hear about. Some of the little secret swimming holes that I found, I didn't find for almost a decade after living here. Now, I obviously could have found them a lot earlier, but I just didn't. And let's go ahead and talk about a few of those now. Now, I'm not going to give away all the secrets because, well, I want to leave some of them for myself, but I am going to give you my favorite little swimming hole sort of creek area, and it's located over in Timberlake. Timberlake is this entire area provided to us by Eglin Air Force Base it's got hiking trails and nature trails and all this other stuff that I'll talk about whenever we get to that little section. But they have got a cute little like pond sort of creek thing that we call Robert's Pond that you kind of have to know how to get there. There's some apps and stuff. If you guys are curious about it, you can always comment down below or reach out to us. And any of the ways that you can reach out to us, find us on social, what have you, and I'll kind of point you in the right direction. But this is a spot that very few people are normally going to go to. And when they do, it's a local and it's just a nice little creek. I like taking my pup up there whenever I'm, trolling around on the trails out there in my Jeep. We always go through there and jump in the water and just kind of enjoy it. And I don't have as much footage as I would like of this, but we're going to throw the footage that I do have up here as I'm sitting here talking. And then, of course, that's just right here in Fort Walton Beach. It's not even to mention all the bayous and canals that you can sneak into that have public access. And there's tons of them, way more than I could possibly mention right here in this video. But you've also got places just next door, such as in Niceville. You've got Turkey Creek, which has great trails that lead to a lot of different options for little swimming holes. So if you like finding things that are a little off the beaten path, then Fort Walton Beach is a great spot for you. Now, let's get into the second one. Let's see what we got. All right, friendly communities. This cannot be further from the truth. That is one of my favorite things about Fort Walton Beach. So those that don't know my history, I was relocated here from the military. I had no plan on being a beach guy. I mean, look at my skin color. Like, this is not great to be in a sunny place like this as somebody here. But the community here was so stinking friendly. I couldn't leave. I really couldn't. So whenever my military service was up and I was transitioning into the real estate business, I had a choice. I could go back home or I could stay here. And that is probably one of the main reasons, a friendly community, probably the main reason why I ended up staying. I've lived all over. I've lived in different cities, throughout the Emerald Coast. And it doesn't matter where I seem to go. It seems to have great neighbors. It seems to have great atmosphere. Whenever I'm going out, I don't feel anything but friendliness coming from most people. Now, every city has its issues and things like that. But, I don't feel like crime is bad. I don't feel like I have to defend myself anywhere, have to be looking around anywhere. There's none of that at all. Now I know that I'm a larger dude, so, I might not have some of the same thoughts that other people do. But at the end of the day, the communities being so friendly is one of the biggest reasons why Fort Walton Beach is a great place to live. And what's really cool about it too is even though we're in kind of a tourist town here in Fort Walton, I mean, Destin is definitely our bigger tourist town, but some of that flocks over into Fort Walton. What I've noticed is even the tourists that come here tend to be on the friendlier side. It's very rare that I ever hear of somebody losing their temper, losing their mind, or, any of that sometimes you get at other tourist locations because even though people are on vacation, sometimes they're a little bit spun up and they want their vacation to go perfect. And when it doesn't, they start, throwing their dumpster of words all over the place. And I just haven't seen that here in Fort Walton Beach. All right, let's go on to the next one. We've got a whole bunch more to go, guys. Oh, okay. Proximity to Destin and Pensacola. Those of you that have been to Destin or even Pensacola know that they are phenomenal cities. The problem with both of them, or at least Destin, is that the prices are a little bit high. Now, Pensacola, you can get some great priced homes over there as well. We do service that area, by the way. We are real estate agents first, so if you have any questions on real estate, what have you, all of my information will pop up on the screen. But Pensacola's definitely got some cheaper options, but then you're going to have a pretty hefty trek to the beach if you want to live in one of those more affordable areas of Pensacola. Then on top of that, there's a toll that goes down to Pensacola Beach, and just a little bit of friction there. But in Fort Walton Beach, you've got kind of this prime location where you're getting some of that stuff that we're going to be talking about today, the beach and the outdoor stuff and the trails and the little hidden secret swimming spots. And I'm not going to name the other things that we're going to talk about today yet, but all the other things that we're going to talk about in this video. And it's right there. I mean, it's minutes away at all times. And then whenever you are ready to do some of the hustle and bustle or some of the more touristy style stuff, you can jump right over into Destin, which is literally, depending on where you're at in Fort Walton, it could be as short as 8-minute drive away. And then Pensacola, now that's going to take a little bit longer. That's going to be about 35 to 45 minutes, depending on where you're at in Fort Walton, and sometimes a little bit more with traffic. But either way, that's a pretty short drive to go down there and go see, the streets of Palafox and all of the great things going on downtown there, or heading on over into Destin, checking out the boardwalk, maybe jumping on some skis to enjoy the waters, and then coming back in and going to Margaritaville and grabbing a delicious margarita or any of the great seafood that is right there on the harbor walk, or even going out to Holiday Isle and spending an afternoon baking in the sun. So the proximity is great, but there's still so much more to go. What do we have next? I'm having more fun with this than you guys are, I think. The Fort Walton Beach Pier. Yes. So the Fort Walton Beach Pier is so much more than just the pier. But let's talk about the pier for a second before I get into the boardwalk out there. So the pier's got a lot of great options. I can't remember. I think it's like $2 to walk the pier, maybe $3, something like that. It's very inexpensive. You go in there and you get a little ticket or a little band. I forgot what they give you. It's been a while since I've been out there because I do live here. But anyway, you can walk this pier and it goes out quite a ways. In fact, it catches me off guard every single time. You'll see people fishing off the edge. Great places for fishing. I've got some stuff on fishing later, so I'm not going to touch on that too much because I do want to touch on that in the fishing section on what kinds of fish you can find out there. But you'll see people, with a cooler, with their little seat, with a couple of lines in the water, a couple of, just fishing, just enjoying their day. And you'll also see some wildlife while you're out there, these big old birds. I can't name half of them because there's so many of them out there, but they'll just be chilling on the pier right with you. And you can walk all the way out there so you can enjoy the fishing. You've got sunrises and sunsets that are so stinking beautiful. It is insane. It makes you just want to tear up. And it is a great spot in general to just have a nice little walk back and forth, maybe hang out at the edge, watch the waves crash up against the pier. But that's not all that the Fort Walton Pier offers. What I wanted to mention in this as well was the boardwalk that is out there that has great seafood restaurants that you can sit down and enjoy. My favorite, in fact, one of my favorite of all of the seafood places here in Fort Walton Beach, it actually probably is my favorite. It's kind of a tie between this one and AJ's, but is Anglers. Anglers on the beach is so amazing. You get this amazing redfish. They've got this Creole sauce that you can dump on top of it. Oh my gosh, so good. A little pricey. It's like $28, something like that for the meal. But it comes with a ton of food, and the redfish is absolutely amazing. And the best part is that fish is coming directly into that restaurant from the oceans, generally very recently, sometimes even that day. Now, I imagine the restaurants are probably taking a bulk amount of them and storing some of them. So I don't think you're always getting it super fresh that day, but it generally tastes pretty stinking fresh, which is really awesome. Then you've got the Crab Trap. You've got Rockin' Tacos, which is another favorite of mine. It's kind of like almost like Tex-Mex or something, but it's pretty good. And they've got some great margaritas. The jalapeno, I think it's jalapeno pineapple one. Pretty good if you're into those sort of drinks. So you've got all of this great stuff to do down there, not to mention all of the shops that you can go shopping at whenever you're down on the beach or down on the pier. All right, that was a mouthful. Let's go to the next one. I would have picked a smaller bucket had I realized that it was going to be this difficult to reach into. All right, festivals and events. Yes, I love this. So We have this great spot in downtown Fort Walton called The Landing, where most of the festivals and events are going to happen. And I'll talk about some of those smaller ones before I get into some of the bigger ones. Smaller ones that happen at The Landing will be like Tacos and Tequila and Brewfest and Craftathon. And I'm naming a bunch of the ones that have alcoholic beverages because that's what I enjoy. I like going over there and trying new brews and seeing the different margaritas people make up at the, Tacos and Tequila and stuff. But there's a lot of events going on. And it's not just that, it's farmers markets I think it's like every other Saturday, maybe it's every Saturday. I don't know. I just kind of catch them randomly, and you can walk around and people are creating like these little art pieces that you can buy. And these really cool, like American flags etched into wood. I love that. Every single time that they are there, I go through and I look at them. You can create your own jewelry while you're there. You can get some local honey. There's just a bunch of things that you can do. And then on top of that, we've got some of the larger events, like the Seafood Festival, which sometimes is out in Fort Walton. Sometimes they do the big one out in Destin, really. But they do a smaller one in Fort Walton as well. That's pretty good. And then my favorite, you guys have probably heard me if you guys have been listening to me for a while, which, by the way, if you are a longtime viewer, thank you. If you're a new viewer, awesome. Thank you too. But we have a festival called the Boggy Bayou Mullet Festival, which is generally held out in Niceville. And I don't even think they're calling it the Mullet Festival anymore, but you're not getting me to say it any other way because I still think that is one of the coolest names for it. But it's not actually about the mullet, the hair. It is about the mullet, the fish. It's a good time. Think of like a big fair that also has drinks and also has like live concerts and things like that going on. And then, of course, we've got Billy Bowlegs. This one is a reenactment that they do. It's a whole like parade that goes through town paired with like a pirate ship that's like shooting cannons. And then these pirates like jump into the water and then rush Fort Walton Beach, and the mayor runs away with all of his like Minutemen or whatever. And then they finally turn around, they fight off the pirates, and they push them all the way back. I know it sounds crazy, but it is so much fun, and it's great for kids. And then it eventually starts transitioning into being great for adults, and maybe pull the kids away because every once in a while it gets a little bit rambunctious. Now, of course, you can stay away from it pretty easy. It's not like Fort Walton as a whole is getting rambunctious. It's more like the downtown scene. It's a bar scene. People have been drinking, watching the parade, hanging out. So obviously, just be a little bit careful with your kids, depending on how old they are. All right, let's get into the next one. All right, family-friendly adventures. Okay, so I don't have any kids myself, so all of my experience here is from the different team members that I have here on my team, and different agents that I feel like almost all of the agents on my team have kids. So I get to hear by proxy the different things that they are doing. And 3 of my favorite things here in the area that are family friendly, outside of all of the parks and the beach stuff that you can do and the water activities, outside of that is the golfarium. So we've got a great golfarium here. I actually just had a friend have a wedding there, and they blocked off the whole thing for us. So I actually got to enjoy it myself because that's not something I would generally go out and do myself. But I did do it for this wedding, and it was really cool, actually. They've got like an albino alligator. I don't know why that's the first one that pops in my head, but they've got, dolphins, of course, swimming in. And they've got this really cool, like, big window that you can just look at it from on the outside, where they're just swimming right next. I mean, they're literally like 2 feet from you. It's crazy. And then a bunch of other animals and things, which is super cool. Then right across the street from that, you've got the Adventure Zone. And this is all located, by the way, right by the pier, these 2 that I'm mentioning. So the Adventure Zone, it has one of these like 3-story obstacle course things where you've got to like have a harness and stuff and walk across these planks and, all this cool stuff. And then they've got go-karts and bumper boats and a full-blown arcade, an ice cream spot. I'm sure I'm missing something there. And then, of course, you've got the Surge, which for those of you that like that, like bounce stuff. Anyway, my point with all of this is that there's a ton of family-friendly stuff. So outside of the parks, outside of Surge and, the golfarium, it's just a lot to do with the kiddos, which is great because, well, as I'm hearing from the other parents here, is that getting out some of that energy is generally a pretty good thing for the kids. All right. Let's go on to our next bucket list item. That was not intentional that it was a bucket, and I was going to say that. All right. Ooh, cultural and historical sites. Those of you that like a little bit of culture, you want to see the history, you want to see things kind of mold in a city that you're going to be living in. Awesome. We've got that. My absolute favorite one. I did a video on this years and years ago. In fact, it was probably one of the first 3 videos I did on this channel. We've been doing videos since I think 2020. Was the Air Force Armament Museum. I still love it to this day. So I'm a prior Air Force guy, and I was an aviator. I used to fly on the MC-130P, which is just a big cargo plane that does some, kind of unique stuff. So I like going over there and looking at the other aircraft, and they've got a ton of other aircraft at the Air Armament Museum sitting outside. One of which, my favorite, is the SR-71, which I believe is still holding the ranking for the fastest plane that's ever been created. In fact, it goes so fast it stretches something like 3 to 5 feet or something at its top speed. They have to replace a ton of bolts and stuff every single time it lands. It's pretty cool. I'm not going to give you a whole nerd lesson on that, but I absolutely love it. And then inside they've got a bunch of cool things too, like ejection seats and blimps and different bombs that we've used. They've got the Moab that we call the mother of all bombs. That's not the official name, but that's what we called it in the Air Force. They've got a big replica of that out there. They've got a variant of the C-130 that I used to fly, multiple helicopters. It's a really good time. Then on top of that, you've got a bunch of other smaller areas too that aren't necessarily Air Force related. That one's very Air Force kind of military related. But not only that, we have the Indian Temple Mound Museum as just one example that's actually located right in the heart of downtown. So if you're staying or maybe even visiting, and you're hanging out in the downtown area, checking out some of the other cool things, which, by the way, we have a couple other cool ones about the downtown area here in a second, you can actually pop into the Temple Museum and check that out and just kind of see what that is all about. And there's a bunch of these little things kind of hidden across town. All right, if you're getting any value out of this, don't hesitate to go down and hit the little like button. It notifies me what types of videos you guys would like to do. For those that have been longtime viewers, we've been kind of experimenting, doing a lot more neighborhoods and showcasing houses because we are a real estate channel primarily. So if this is the kind of thing that you like, hit that like button and maybe even comment down below and let me know. What's the next one? I can tell by the color already what it is. Weather and year-round sunshine. I don't know if you guys can see this. I should probably be putting this closer so you can see it, but the weather and year-round sunshine. This is the reason why most people check into looking in Florida in general, right? They want that year-round warmth with the 3 weeks of devastating cold that we get. And I say devastating cold, it's just cold to me. It starts hitting, if the number is 4 in the Fahrenheit, little index 42, 48, it's too cold for me. But that's why so many people like living here, is because it is generally warm year round. Now in the summer, it does get it gets a little bit too much sometimes. You step outside, you're just sweating, just walk into your car, you take a shower, you feel like you've got to take another one as soon as you get to the office or wherever you're going. But all around all around the sunshine is out for the most part. And we have a saying here where it's if it's raining, just wait 5 minutes, it'll go away. And it really is true. And I think that's one of the big reasons why so many people look at Florida and say, hey, that's a place that I might want to live. What we have here that's very unique here in the Panhandle is South Florida, and I'm not knocking South Florida. I love it. I love it down there. But they get brutally hot and stay there quite a bit longer. The cool thing with the Panhandle is that we get a little bit of reprieve from that. Now, with that, our winters are a little bit longer. Instead of 2 days down in South Florida, we get about 3 weeks of winter. But outside of that, it stays a little bit more temperament. And then, of course, because we're right on the water, even if you're going as far north as Crestview per se, which I know this is a Fort Walton video in particular, but we're getting that breeze right from the Gulf of Mexico, which is just so good. And it really helps us out. And just overall, it's awesome to be able to do all the things, to be able to live in an area that we get to do all these things and have the weather be so beneficial or in our favor. All right, on to the next one. Let's see what we got. Outdoor activities. All right. Now, I've already mentioned a couple of the outdoor activities in general, but I want to go in depth just a little bit more in some of the cool things that Fort Walton specifically has. Now, I mentioned Timberlake and going to Roberts Pond earlier, and that's kind of a part of this. There is a lot going on in Timberlake. They've got 32 or 33 trails, or 33 miles of trails, not 33, 33 miles of trails of all different, difficulty levels for hiking and mountain biking in particular. They've also got areas for outdoor cycling, on a paved road that's a little bit less traveled, so it feels a little bit more safe. And that's just over at Timberlake, right? If you want to throw a paddleboard into the creek or what have you, you can absolutely do that. But then we get into the Gulf side of things and then the Bay side of things. There's so much to do. You can paddleboard, kayak, just get a little, I forget what the little body boards. You can just hang out in the water and just swim and just enjoy it. There's walking trails all around. It's not just at Timberlake. You've got multiple little like hidden areas and stuff, which is pretty cool. I actually just found one not too far from my office that was just like, it's probably only about a quarter of a half a mile walk, but it's just like a nice little outdoor trail that has like some markers and stuff that talk about some of the plants and stuff that you're seeing, which I thought was cool. It was just very interesting that I've lived here that long and I never noticed that little park before. And then if you're willing to drive a little bit, we've got even more on the outskirts of Fort Walton Beach. In fact, if you're willing to drive about 30, probably closer to about 45 minutes, maybe 50 minutes, depending on what part of Fort Walton you're in. You've got Blackwater River State Park, which I've talked about on this channel a lot. It's one of my favorites to go tubing down. You can go kayaking, stand-up paddleboarding down this thing, and it goes all the way to like 22 miles or something like that. And they've got full-blown tours that they will take you to one side and then let you float all the way down, pick you up, you take all the tubes and stuff back, and it's like very, very affordable too. I want to say it's like $10-15 for this whole thing where they take you in a bus, they give you the tubes, they give you everything you need short of your drinks and snacks that you're going to want while you're floating down the river. All right, so that's outdoor activity stuff. We've got more. Let's do it. Oh, we're getting down to the bottom few here. What is the next one? Ooh, affordable living. Affordable living. I like this one mainly because I'm in real estate, right? So as I mentioned before, if you need any real estate help whatsoever, all of my information will pop up on the screen. And there's also a Calendly link down below. There's a ton of ways to get a hold of us. And you can also find us on social. I'll put it somewhere here on the screen. But let's talk about affordable living for a second, because if you are considering moving down here, this is going to be a very big portion of the questions that you have and a very big portion of your decision-making process in general. In fact, we just had a comment 2 or 3 days ago. If you're watching this, thank you, by the way. I'm going to see if I can find it and throw it up here, that they were asking what the cost of living is. Now, we've done full-blown cost of living in general on this channel, but I do want to touch on that briefly while we're on the subject of affordable living. So when we're talking about affordable living here in Fort Walton Beach, we definitely have cities that are less expensive, and we have a lot of cities that are a lot more expensive all along the Emerald Coast, because we do service everybody from Pensacola to Panama City Beach and everything in between, but our main office is right here in Fort Walton. Everybody thinks that, hey, because it's a coastal town, it's probably going to be pretty expensive. But the median price here in Fort Walton Beach is under $350,000. And that's going to get you a 3-bed, 2-bath around 1,700 square feet. For the most part, obviously, it's housing. So some, nicer houses are going to be a lot more expensive, and then some less, whatever. There's a wide range there, but the median is 350. It's actually 347 and some change as of last month. And then, of course, if maybe you're coming down here and you want to rent first to figure out, is this the right area I want to be? I'm not really sure. Cool. I got you there too. The median rental price last month of actual rented properties, this isn't what they say that they're renting for, because you do have some negotiation room sometimes, was $1,850. And so that $350,000 the mortgage on that with taxes and insurance would probably be about that as well, around $1,800 to $2,000 per month. So not super cosmic. Then you can expect your groceries for a family of 4 to be somewhere around $1,000 to $1,200, and obviously it can go a lot higher than that if you eat organic and things like that. But I'm trying to do like an average here to give you guys a rough idea. Then your utilities for like a family of 4, I would estimate somewhere between $200 and $300 if you're watching stuff. You're not keeping lights on all the time, keeping your air conditioner down to 68 in the summertime. Obviously, that's going to shoot your utilities up quite a bit. Then for those of you that don't have health care provided by your employer, you can expect around $1,000 to $1,500 from what I am understanding. Again, I'm a single dude. I don't have, I don't have kids or anything. So I don't really know the actual number, but based on what my agents were saying on my team who do have kids, it's about what they pay. And then childcare here in Fort Walton Beach will range from about $750 a month to about $1,000 a month, just kind of depending on the age. I think the younger ones are actually cheaper, which I thought was kind of weird. But we do have a couple of kids in the daycare system here. They like it. There's no, I haven't heard any complaints. And then, of course, your transportation is going to be completely dependent on what you drive and what your payments are and things like that. But on an average, I believe it's going to be somewhere between $800 and $1,000 for 1 to 2 vehicles, to include maintenance, your car payment stuff. Obviously, if you have a newer car or you just bought recently, I know the prices have gone like crazy the last several years. That number might be a little bit higher, but you should already have a pretty good idea of what that is. So all in all, my point with this is it's not as expensive as a lot of people think to live here. Now, that's definitely out of reach for some, and it's definitely within reach for a lot of folks. So it just kind of depends on what your family income is. But I think most people can get away with a family income of about 60 to 80,000, and then start getting pretty comfortable above and beyond that, where you're putting a little bit of money away, your discretionary spending's higher, things like that. All right, so that's all of the affordable living stuff. Let's go into the next section here. All right, what do we have here? Ooh, secret fishing spots. This is one that I don't talk about very often on here because I am not an angler by any means, or a fisherman, or I don't fish at all. I don't do it. So I did have to ask some of my fishing buddies if there were any secret fishing spots, and I was pleasantly surprised that there's kind of a lot. Now, some of them are hidden in plain sight, while others are legitimately secret. So let's talk about some of those options. First and foremost, we've got the Santa Rosa Sound. The Sound is the area between the barrier island, known as Okaloosa Island, and the mainland, Fort Walton Beach. This is a little area called the Sound here. I didn't know this, but apparently there are a lot, like I'm talking like 30 or something. It might be more, I don't know, of these little hidden spots that just have like a little ramp going down, or just a public access area that you can fish off of anywhere on, or not anywhere on the Sound, but in multiple locations on the Sound. Particularly if you're on a Soundside neighborhood, a lot of those Soundside neighborhoods will have a public fishing area or a public little beach area that you can also fish in. Sometimes they even have a public dock. So definitely pretty cool there. You've got a bunch of different options. Now, for the Sound, you're going to have the larger fish, and then you're also going to have some options with like redfish, speckled trout, and something that my buddy called black drum. I'm not 100% sure what that is. Then we start getting into some of the, it's out in the open. You see people fishing there, but you don't realize if it's going to be good or bad, and one of those is the Marlar Bridge. Now, the Marlar Bridge is going to be great for redfish and black snapper, and it's just a bridge that's located going right into Okaloosa Island. Then, of course, there's Liza Jackson Park, which is home of my favorite dog parks that my little pup and I like to go to. But they've got 1,000 feet of Sound frontage as well, so you're going to get some of the same kind of fish there. You got multiple little areas that you can, throw a line in the water, a boat ramp, and then, of course, a dog area and stuff, which has nothing to do with the fishing spots. I just think it's good to know. And then, of course, you have the Choctawhatchee Bay, which has just a lot of different things going on down there in general. That's the, more calm water that does go right into the Gulf of Mexico and into the Sound as well. So you've got a lot of options there to fish, to include, redfish, speckled trout, and flounder. And if you're willing to travel a little bit, you've got some options in the West Jetties, which are a little bit more secluded. It's challenging fishing from what I understand, from what one of my buddies told me, but very rewarding fishing nonetheless. And then, of course, if you want to head out into Niceville, you've got Rocky Bayou State Park, and you've got multiple little areas to fish there as well. Point of this is tons of fishing. I mean, there's a reason why Destin is known as the world's luckiest fishing village. Fort Walton Beach is just its neighbors, so we're kind of like, we're basically luckiest fishing. We're close, but there's lots of options nonetheless. All right. That's why I don't talk about fishing all that much. I grabbed two here because I just don't know all the spots. I wish I did. So I could talk to you guys more about it. All right. Sandbars and Crab Island. All right. Most people know what Crab Island is, right? We've done videos on Crab Island. If you haven't seen that, we're going to pop one up here in the cards for you so you can check it out. Every time we do a new one every single year, I take my entire team out, and we do a Crab Island day every single year. Rent a captain, we make a whole day of it. So we always try to shoot some footage while we're out there, do some new videos, so you can see that every single year, and it's very popular. So anyway, if you'd like to see that, it's up there. But that's not the only sandbar we have. For those that don't know, haven't seen that video yet, I'll give you a quick rundown. Crab Island is an area right between Fort Walton Beach and Destin, where basically they drudged out the East Pass, which is where you go into the ocean at, right? Or into the Gulf of Mexico. And they drudged that out, and they threw it basically in the bay. And eventually, over time, it was an island. like back in the 40s, and then a hurricane came through and another hurricane and more winds, and he eventually turned it into a sandbar, meaning that, you know, it's water for about 2 feet and then you're there. But if you're looking around, it looks like you're in the middle of the ocean. Anyway, it's a big party spot. It's a big, you know, go out there and take your kids. I know kids and party don't really go along. Like, they're kind of separate, right? Where you can take your kids, and they've got these big inflatables that they put out there. They've got floating bars, floating restaurants, a floating convenience store even, which I think is kind of cool. But either way, that is our most popular sandbar. And then if you head out into the Sound, we actually have multiple other sandbars that whenever low tide hits up, you can actually see some of it come out. You've got these little islands that kind of come alive. And then you've got multiple sandbars that most people have no idea about, especially tourists and stuff that come down here. They don't really notice. Maybe one time you've been out here and you've been seeing people at one of these sandbars, but for the most part, you've really got to know somebody to know how to get out to them. But these are great for being able to just throw up your jet ski or your pontoon boat or whatever you have, whatever watercraft. You're going to need some sort of watercraft to get to all of them, and be sitting in the water, enjoying your nice beverage with the sun beaming down on you, but in the water so you're nice and cool the whole time so that you don't feel like you're getting beat up too bad. All right, we're getting down to the bottom three. All right, let's do this one. Okay, this is kind of an obvious one here. Beautiful beaches. I feel like this goes without saying, but if you guys have not seen our beaches here in Fort Walton Beach, they're outstanding, okay? So it's known as the Emerald Coast for a reason, because the water goes from blue to emerald very abruptly, and it's gorgeous, right? On top of that, and you guys have heard me say this before, my personal favorite thing is the sand. It is like bleach white, and it is just powder. There's not a lot of stuff in them, especially in Fort Walton Beach. You head over into Navarre, you've got a lot more shells. It's not super shelly, but you've got a little bit. You head out into Destin, and there's just more people trafficking those beaches. So it doesn't feel as clean. They're still very clean. It just doesn't feel like Fort Walton does. Fort Walton feels like this great middle ground of just amazing sand. You stick your toes right in and just wiggle a little bit. It's so soft, it's powder, and then it doesn't get so hot that you're like running to your spot or needing to stand on a towel or something like that. And then on top of that, the water's very beautiful most times of the year. Sometimes you guys will see videos where the water isn't so much because the algae has come in, or occasionally red tide, which is nobody's favorite around here. A bunch of dead fish come up and stuff, and last for a day to 2 weeks, somewhere in that range. But for the most part, the beaches are just amazing, right? And the waves aren't super crazy. So generally, you don't feel unsafe being out there. That's why you don't see a lot of surfers out here in our area until hurricane season comes around. Then you'll start seeing some of them come out of the woods. But absolutely stunning beaches. And there's some cool little spots that a lot of people don't know about right along Okaloosa Island. So here's what happens. Most people go onto Okaloosa Island to go to the pier area. And then there's a whole bunch of beach. And that's awesome. But I'm going to give you a little secret. Right when you're coming over the bridge from Fort Walton Beach onto the island, instead of going to the pier, hang a right at that first light. You will have 7 little beach spots that normally only the locals know that you guys can take advantage of. So, you're welcome if you guys happen to be visiting. If you're not going to be visiting anytime soon, you're going to be moving down here, just keep that in mind, and you'll be able to get to those. They've got restrooms at each one of them. They've completely revamped them over the last few years. And the bathrooms are great. The, little seating areas, some of them even have a little like barbecue area that I never see anybody doing anything with, but it is there. And outdoor showers, of course. So whenever you're done with everything, you don't need to keep a bunch of baby powder in your car. You can just shower off, rinse off the kids' feet or whatever, and then throw them in the vehicle. But if you don't have that, baby powder is a good option to get the sand off. All right, let's go to the next one. Ooh, the local food truck scene. So I hinted at this very early on in the video, the first few sentences that I said. This has been something that has been coming alive here in Fort Walton Beach. It started with just a couple of food trucks, and now they are everywhere. We even have this little area in downtown Fort Walton where I think there's 6 or 7 of them, and they're talking about putting some on the other side. So there's a great little central hub of them. They've got a spot there with really good coffee, a spot there with really good breakfast burritos. And then, of course, scattered throughout the town, you've got a ton of other food trucks here and there. I mean, I can name 7 or 8 spots right off the top of my head. There's a taco one that I get to. It's actually from where my office is right now, it can't be more than a quarter of a mile away. So you've got lots of options for food trucks, which doesn't seem like that big of a pro, but I kind of think it is, because you're getting all of these different kinds of food, and it's not just like tacos and coffee and burritos. There's like a Filipino place right near us. There's there's a couple of Thai trucks as well. You just got a wide range of different food items. So if you're a foodie or you enjoy that food truck scene, you're definitely going to enjoy life here in Fort Walton Beach. All right. Ooh, our last one. We can put the bucket away. Thanks to one of our local lenders for this bucket, by the way. All right. Ooh, quiet nights of downtown Fort Walton. This is the biggest one we got right here. I mean, like, longest little piece of paper here. So that's a whole bunch. It's 15 different things we just went over. All right. Quiet nights of downtown Fort Walton. Downtown Fort Walton is so interesting because it's lively. It's got a great vibe, at least to me. It's like one of my favorite vibes. I like it way more than Destin. And anybody that's been to Destin knows it's got kind of like it's a more laid back vibe, but it's got a little bit of that hint of party in it, you know? Fort Walton Beach has a very similar vibe with just a notch laid back, like a notch or two more laid back. So we've got a lot of different places. One of my favorite is the boardroom, and they've got some like cool menu items and stuff. And they've got a pretty good selection of drinks. We used to have this whole little center area of Casey's that had the sand right in the center that's actually from our beaches. They would have live bands there, and there was Taste, and there was the craft room and or tap room, I think they called it. There was a bunch of stuff there, but literally like 2-3 months before shooting this video, they decided to sell it, the owners of it or what have you. So we don't know what's going to go in there. That was a big portion of the hub of downtown. I'm very confident that whatever's going to go in there is going to kind of help revitalize it and make it great. But outside of that, you've got Jake and Henry's, which is really cool. It kind of gives me it almost gives me like a 1950s, 60s vibe. I don't think that's what they're going for, but that's what I always think of when I go in there. Very cool. A little bit of an older crowd, a little bit more laid back. They do live music in there as well. They've got a little dance floor, and they just make it a pretty good time. Top of that, you've got Fockers and just a bunch of other great restaurants, a great Italian restaurant. It's just downtown in general. But the point of this is it's a very like cool vibe, very like casual, like you're going to enjoy yourself. It's going to have that like little bit of hype, but it's not going to be too over the top where like by 9 p.m. you're like, I need to go home. I can't do this anymore, right? I absolutely love our downtown area. All right, if anything you found in this video was helpful, please hit that like button. Let me know. Comment down below something that maybe I didn't touch on that you'd like more information on. And as always, we do help people buy and sell properties from Pensacola to Panama City Beach and everything in between. We have a specialist for absolutely every single city along the Emerald Coast. So if you need help at all, or you just have questions, you don't even need to use us. You just have a few questions. Maybe you're trying to narrow it down. Maybe you're a year out from even moving and you just want to talk to one of us. All of my information is up on the screen. You'll get me or you get one of my specialists for that area that you're asking about, and we'll answer any of those questions. And of course, we can set up a great buyer consultation for you if you'd like to go to the next step of the process. I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.